idealized image is critical to accurately type because our idealized images, if threatened, are how we get fearful and then defensive. So our idealized image, our core fears, and our defense strategy as determined by Naranjo. Why is that important? Because those idealized images, if threatened, make our core fears rise up and we go to chaos or panic. And then our gut comes in and does something, some sort of defense to restore a sense of equilibrium. So some people might say, like, for example, with the three has a fantasy image in their idealized set of images. And so if I tell you, yeah, you're not a good baseball player, and maybe you really, your whole life tried to be a good baseball player, and someone just tells you the thing that you thought you're not, well, like, how would you know? There's immediate defense. But if we're a little kid and that happens, we go, well, I'll just try harder. So the three gets busy with the task of getting better or leaving baseball and finding something where they can excel. So that's a strategy a three uses, where another type said, yeah, I don't want to bother with that. I'd rather do something where it's easier or it's more competitive. It'd be different for each of us. So with that fear, the defense strategy is going to help us. Now, I have these at katherinefauvre.com. I've actually put a lot of excerpts from my last book, which is the Enneagram Instinctual Subtypes 2.0, where I took all the research from really my entire career, coming in with other systems, putting them together, and qualitative research studies that began in 1994 and what was true years later. So first I just put it all in there, and then I thought, okay, after 10 years, this is true or not true. But I met Naranjo after I had done 2 years of research. And because of his background as a personality researcher when it was a new field, he had a scholarship, or Harvard award to Guggenheim. He went to Ohio State, where they were doing all the really progressive research, and Michigan. And then he, as I said, went to Berkeley and all around this area because he made Berkeley his home. So he was at Stanford Couples Institute, you name it. He was doing there, but also observational research, like a lot of what Karen Horney came up with. And we all use that, moving towards, away, or against. A lot of people saw in the Enneagram types. Like, I immediately saw that because Karen Horney was kind of big in the 60s because when they were saying that women had, envied being and wanted to be a man, and she said, hey, men want to have a womb and be able to create too. And she normalized it as equal. So we all kind of read that, and that was that same teacher my senior year. Oh, yeah, we're all a mess. That makes sense. We're equally a mess. We're equally great, but different. So those of us that knew Karen Horney's work, when we started looking at the description of the Enneagram types, we thought, yeah, we could see which one. We don't completely agree, but most of us agreed on the aggressive types and the more compliant types and the more withdrawn types, resignation. So there are a lot of terms that work, but that's because Naranjo deliberately used every triad that he'd ever learned on personality and put them in. People don't realize that either. Echazo had this mental preoccupation. I think Echazo was a social nine, and why he was focused on the mental part, because the social nine, social is what? The primitive version of the head type. That's why our social nines are more intellectual than the other nines. But anyhow, when you understand that, you then know why the idealized image become our out of control passions that we must have. We must have those images. someone said I wasn't protective, I'd be, say what? Because I think, how are you defining protective? Because I would feel like I'd stand up for anybody, even at my own risk. But someone might say, well, no, protective is being tender-hearted and saying sympathetic things. And I go, well, that's not how I see protective. So the benefit is I could then learn more about what others would deem protective, where I was just going in my own 8 lens. Then those core fears become compulsively focused on, in a way, what can go wrong, because all of us worry about that. But the 6 is the most preoccupied with that because the 6 is the center of the head center. But the out of control fixations come from our core fears. And so we're trying desperately to think, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to believe? What do I need to do to make it safe again? And then the defense strategy that Naranjo added to the passions and fixations, I call the convictions. He validated my research in 1996, which was great. And he actually asked me to share my findings during that intensive in 96 in Boulder, Colorado. So he added what he knew or he hypothesized, but since my research validated his hypothesis, and he felt like I'd found all the combinations. He only knew some of them, but actually he knew a lot. But 5s are reticent to declare something, where 8s are very opinionated. Well, I see it like this because all the people did this. They had this micro expression, and then this was the tone to their voice, and just liked it. And he said that he wouldn't teach the subtypes because he didn't know enough. I'm saying, what? But you started introducing them in 1971. He said, yes, but I haven't worked through all 27 archetypes, is what he called them. But then when he saw and I had researched by that time, like, I can never remember, it was 22 or 2,500, but it was a lot of people. And that meant 3-hour interviews with people and follow-up interviews and all my testing instruments. And if you've taken my test at Enneagram tritypetest.com, the very first part of that was given to everybody. And then that's how I happened to notice that, wait, I told people to rank all 9 types. They didn't know what they were based on the idealized image and the core fear, because I hadn't added the defense strategies yet. And I'll be darned if people didn't have a type from each center. So even the 6 and 9 that tend to identify with another type, because the 3, 6, 9 kind of become invisible to the people that have those types. And even to us to a degree, because they're so adaptable. The 3 we see the most. And that's because you guys know that you want to achieve, you want to execute, you want to produce. So it's easier for you to at least know your 3. But I have found that 3s have just as much trouble finding their other 2 types in their tritype. Whereas the 6 and 9, they have trouble with their lead type, getting that. It'll usually be in their mix. And that's why I created that test, because I needed something that would alert people. They wouldn't have to have a session with me to find out they use patterns of 6 or 9.